Can you see my screen? Excellent. Here we go. So what are we talking about? The challenge. The challenge we are talking about today is, well, as I said, we all talk about organizations together, and we talk about these names. Some organizations have many names in different languages. The World Health Organization, for example. We can write in data perhaps the name of one organization many different ways, in slightly different ways, which is a challenge for us. This is the FCDO. And we can use acronyms, different languages, and this is the IOM, and the IOM, if you look into IATI data, has many different names, or as we call them, narratives. So that is the challenge. So the challenge is, how can we be sure that we're all talking about the same organization in our data sets, particularly when we're all publishing them together, but separately. So how do we know we're talking about each other in the same way, in the same organization? Well, as most people will know, I think we do have a protocol in IATI that's been around a long time, 13, 14, 15 years, where we have a prefix for the jurisdiction, the registration agency, and the registration number of the organization we want to describe. So an example is Amplify Change. It's the charity in the UK, 124828833. It's also a Companies House. It's on Companies House in the UK with that number. So the reference, the identifier that we use is GBCOH with the number. And that's what we've had in place for the past 15 years to try and be sure that when we talk about amplified change, we're talking about the same amplified change. So we use lists that already exists. Here is the Charity Commission for England and Wales. And as you can see, if you search for Save the Children, you get that number 107. And what we have been doing is put in the prefix for the Charity Commission, GBCHC. In the Netherlands, there is the Chamber of Commerce Registry. I don't know what the words are, the KVK, perhaps Leo can remind us in chat. But if you search for Oxfam, and then you add the prefix LKVK, that's what we get. And I think that's the right one. Phew. And also very particular to us in this world, we have the channel codes from the OECD DAC. And they have lots of organizations listed there that are really particular and relevant to our world. So we often find in IATI data that we have this XM DAC, and then the organization we want to describe. So we've been doing this for many years. We've been talking about organizations, giving them names in our data, and then using these codes, these identifiers to help be a bit more precise. We've had and have a list of the lists, all those places where you can find organizations where they are. So if we look in Burkina Faso, we can find different lists of organizations that we can use to make these references. So this is what we've been doing. We've been doing this for a long time, and we were really interested in our research to understand, okay, to what extent are we using these references so we can be clearer and more precise. So back to those examples, the World Health Organization is all those names, but also XMDAC-928. The FCDO is GB-Gov-1 at the moment. And the IOM is XMDAC, also on the channel code list, 47066. So these are the references that we're using. In the IATI standard, we do talk about organizations a lot. We have reporting organizations, those that publish the data. They have a reference, often the same as we've talked with already. So there's the reporting org. Then in the activities, we have the participating orgs. And the participating orgs can have different roles, but equally also we try and give them those references. And then in IATI transactions, we have the organization that provides the transaction, whether that be a disbursement or commitment or anything else, and the organization that receives the organization. So we have all these types of organizations in IATI data, and we're interested to see What can we get from this data, particularly through the lens of these references, these identifiers? If you look at any IATI activity, you'll find really good usage in many places for these references. This is the UNHCR and their operations in Bangladesh, I think. Yeah, Bangladesh. And you can see that they've added in these references for the many partners they have. It's not always the case, and for many good reasons, I think, and we know it's not always possible to know where or how to identify organizations, but at least we know in IATI data there's a good set of this already. So I'm going to talk to you very briefly before Isabel screen shares, and we're on good time, thankfully, but hopefully that's a quick recap of what the challenge is. And what have we done in the past few weeks? Well, first of all, we've taken all these references that are in IATI data alongside a few other sources like the OECD, and we put them into a big hopper, cleaned them because some of the references don't make any sense. Some of them are very generic, etc., etc. And we get through from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. We get through to a list of about 17,000 organizations that have a reference that we think looks okay, and then some names. We can't guarantee they're all perfect, but we get to that subset by looking at everybody's data, and we get there. So we've got a list which we're happy to share with everybody. That's a list. I think we were in Brussels in March, and the clear call was, can we have a list? So we have a list now, and we really want to talk with everyone about what do we do with that list. If somebody could mute themselves, that would be very helpful. So so we have a list, and Isabel will show you that in a moment. And we also started to look at, well, which organizations are in common. If the UNICEF and WFP, if we look at their data sets, which of those references are they using together in common? And so we've got a nice graphic to share with you that you can query and have a look at to understand, you know, how many organizations have in common with each other, which is really interesting, we thought. So we've paired these references. We've also done the thing everyone likes to see, the network. Now we're a bit more clear about which organizations are in the data. We're beginning to see who funds who, or who has transactions between who. So the provider and the receiver org. This is the World Health Organization. They have disbursements. They have transactions going to some organizations, and they have transactions coming to them. So we're able to do that because we're a bit more confident in the data and the usage of these references. And then also we thought, okay, well, if we're clear about which organizations we're more precise about, we can begin to see, well, which organizations are in Afghanistan in education and emergencies, which from IATI data, moving a bit beyond the reporting org, we thought, into the participating org element, and really trying to explore what do we know and see now that everybody has put all this effort into their data. Yeah, it's a big thing. So we're going to take a look at this in a moment. Isabel's going to screen share in a moment. But I also wanted to say that this is a puzzle. This is a puzzle, and this is when I'm my parents in earlier in the year. I like jigsaws, so this was a jigsaw I was doing. This is what we're doing at the moment. We're doing a massive jigsaw, and we don't have the picture, but we're all really trying from our different corners and different parts. And of course, there's an obligatory slide coming up. Remember, this is a puzzle, but it's got distractions. You know, the cat can sit on your jigsaw as it did, and there you go. So sorry again, the cat, but you know, let's embrace this bit, please. So, Isabel, you're going to now share this application, and as I would like to say, sorry. Let's all keep here for now, and then please have a look at the application after the call. And we've got a call on the 30th of September as a follow-up. But over to you, Isabel. And now, can everyone see Isabel's screen? Great. Okay, fantastic. Isabel. So you've built this. Do you want to talk us through this, and we'll take it? We're doing nicely for time. Thank you.
Yeah. So as in the previous state of the data, where we looked at organisation references, as Stephen says, this is another Deep Note app. So afterwards, you're very welcome to have a play and look up your own organisations and see how they feature in the data. I won't go through the background because Stephen's covered that, but just one thing to emphasise is that throughout this we'll refer to the names, the narratives of organisations, their unique organisation identifiers, and then we'll refer to the combination of a narrative and an org ID as a reference. So those two things together forming a reference. So the first thing we did was wanting to look at all the organisation references in the data. How much can we get from the community that's already been done to reference these organisations uniquely? So I'll just briefly talk you through the diagram Stephen's shown. So we have this big source of information from the IATI data, and as you explore, you'll be able to hover over this diagram and get some information about the numbers and what we've done at each step. So we started with this big pool of about 90,000 organisation references in the data, and these had to consist of a narrative and an org ID to be useful to us, so no blank entries here. And then we did some cleaning steps. So we pulled out the overlong organisation identifiers. We think maybe people have been accidentally putting API keys in there. So there's some that are 50 characters long, which obviously aren't the org IDs we're looking for. And we also filtered out org IDs and narratives that say things like redacted, NA, or generic ones. So for example, the DAC codes have some generic things like government, which aren't specific enough. We want to know which government you're referring to. And also some internal references. The point of these org IDs is that they're external and they're shared between different organisations. If it's an internal code, it's only useful to the person sharing it. It's not useful to everyone else. So that gives us about 55,000 cleaned references. We then focused in on the org ID specifically. Are they structured how we'd expect? Do they have that prefix built from the org ID guide and the suffix that's their number from whatever registry? And that again filters out quite a lot. There's quite a lot of numbers that aren't, they're just numbers or not constructed properly. So that really reduced the list down. We then took a look at what other places we can pull relevant data from. So we could really cast a wide net and pull in lots of organisations from lots of lists. Well, that could give us a really big, but not necessarily that useful list. We want to focus on organisations that are working in developments that are relevant to IATI data. So we took a look at GovID Finder, which is a Code for IATI community-made tool, and that looks to build org IDs for some government departments that might not be publishing at the moment. We looked at the IATI registry, because those are all well-validated references from the reporting organisations themselves. We looked at version 1 of the standard, because originally they weren't constructed as we know now. So there's some org IDs that might not look correct, but they've been used historically. So they're still forming useful networks in the data. And we also took the OECD DAC codes. Again, lots of organisations involved in development. And that gives us this combined list. Because we've combined a few sources, there was some duplication. So then we had to remove any duplicates. And then finally, we combined any duplicated org IDs. So as I said, a reference is formed of a narrative and an org ID. So quite a lot of times there were the same org ID with multiple references. So we've selected for our final list either the most verifiable one. So the registry we know is well verified, version 1 of the standard we know is well verified. And if it's sourced from the community, we've taken the most commonly used one. So hopefully if lots of people agree on the same combination of organisation identifier and narrative, that's a useful reference that's in common between multiple organisations we can use to form the networks we want. So that gives us this lovely list out at the end, which you'll be able to download from the app and have a look at. And this is refreshing every day at the moment. So it's pulling the latest data in and hopefully giving us a really up-to-date snapshot of the organisations in IATI. So we have the org ID, we have the most common or the most verifiable narrative to form that reference, the number of organisations publishing to IATI that use that reference somewhere in their data. So that could be as a participating, as a receiver, as a provider organisation. The source that that's come from. So a lot of these that are used by lots of organisations are from the registry, but further down the list, we see some community sourced ones. What registration agency is this code list built from? I believe XI Duns are the most common one, but closely followed by the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce. What country is the registration agency based in? And then we have a link set to dPortal, so you can open that up and have a look at all the activities this organisation's involved in. The number of reporting organisations on the dPortal list will look different to our list. That's because dPortal's just using the org ID to search, whereas we're specifying the org ID narrative combination that makes the reference. And if you really want to look into the data, we also have the original uncleaned list that you can search. So we can see here at the top, we have the Netherlands. We know that's what their org ID is. We know that's what the narrative is. But if we search the original uncleaned list, we can see all the different narratives that are used. Some no narrative at all. Quite a lot of them do make sense. But there's also some, if I scroll to the bottom of this, there's some slightly iffy looking org IDs in there as well, double XMDAC in that one. So it's quite interesting to see what's going on in the data and how much noise we do have to comb through to get out a list that we think is useful and can be used to network the data.
Thank you, Isabel. So that's our first pass at the list, as everybody wants. And we would be really interested to talk this week and in 2 weeks with people about how do we make this list useful to others? What do we do with it? Update it, and I think as well, keep in mind everybody's got lists of organisations they work with, and we could conceivably start to grow this list with other lists, but one step at a time, one jigsaw piece at a time, and this is really great. And as you said, I said it's not perfect because the data is out there and in many places and spaces, but I think it's really, really helpful. And yeah, thank you for the link, Rahini, to the deep note. And I just encourage everyone to stay in the room first of all and go to the deep note afterwards. But yeah, we've got time for other things. Onward. So do you want to go to the next part, Isabel?
Yeah. So we've had a look at all the organisations that can be referenced in the data. And then we thought, okay, how many of these are actually shared between organisations working in the same sort of area? So this part of the analysis is just going to focus on the organisation identifier, because if we involve the narratives, it gets a bit complicated. But we took a look at all the participating with provider and receiver organisations again that have been referenced by all the organisations in the data. And pairwise, we looked at how many were shared. So the example here, UNDP and UNICEF share 35 organisation identifiers. So they are talking about 35. You need to
scroll down.
Can you not see? I'm talking to the text at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So they have 35 partners that they're working with together and referencing in the same way. This does need to be, you would need to check this, because if they're using the wrong narrative, they might accidentally have the wrong organisation identifier. But if they're doing it properly, that shows that they're working with the same people. So we're starting with multilaterals. We have a little slider at the top here that sets the minimum number of shared org references to show in the visualization. So we've started with 25. So all of these organizations share at least 25 other organization identifiers with another multilateral. So we see here UNHCR and WHO are referencing 31 organizations in common. We can mess with this and set a really high cutoff. So if we set it to 50, we see UNHCR and IOM working with 56 organizations in common. And we'd expect that because they work in a similar area. That makes sense. And you can, again, download the data that is forming the visualization you're looking at the time, so you can have a look at what those organizations are. If we become really lenient and say you only have to have one organization ID in common, it makes a very pretty graph, but it's quite hard to get meaning out of that. But yeah, you can have a play and see how complicated a graph you can make in your own time. And I'll just show another example. So this is the default one that will show when you open it, but we can filter the reporting organizations by type, by headquarter country, or you can put in a list of organisations you're specifically interested in. So say I was looking at country, say United Kingdom. We can see here FCDO, UK government departments, and charities they're working with. They're sharing the same organisation references in common. And we just also pulled out a few snapshots of the data that we thought were quite interesting. So the most commonly referenced organisation is, I believe that's the Netherlands. No. Yeah. With 337 organisations referencing them, closely followed by FCDO. And then it drops off quite quickly to around 50 organisations referencing the other organisations that are high up in this list. And we also took a look at who uses the most org IDs, and the European Commission takes that title. They reference 330 unique org IDs in their data. So again, we have some great networks forming already, a lot of shared organisation reference IDs in common. So I think this builds well upon the list. If these organisations using the same org IDs, they're talking about organisations the same way, hopefully we can iterate and improve it and grow these networks.
Again, thank you as well. That's really helpful. And again, people can have a play with this to see how it looks for them. And it's also going to be the case as well, isn't it, that you showed IOM and UNHCR. I don't know if they're on the call with us, Michelle and Justin. They've really been into doing this as well. So they've put a lot of effort in, as many people have, to get org identifiers in the data as well. So it's also about the efforts people have been making, I think, too, at the moment. Great. So that's about organization references in common. And now the next one, the network.
Yeah, so we've had a look at all the references that are out there. We've had a look at pairwise shared organizations that people are working with. And now we're going to have a look at the transactions, the flows of funding. So this is focusing on the provider and the receiver organizations, who's sending people money and who's receiving it. And in the diagram, a purple arrow indicates that the selected organization is providing funds to wherever the arrow is pointing, and a pink one indicates that it's receiving. So this is using the big list again, because I've been using the org IDs in the provider and receiver organizations, and I've pulled in the most common or the most verified narrative from that list. So hopefully it's talking about the organizations that everyone who reported the data thought they were talking about. So this is looking at WHO, and it's quite a nice diagram to play with. You can give it a little wiggle. So WHO is at the centre of this network, and we can see that they provide funding to the Danish Refugee Council, to World Vision Ethiopia, many organisations, and they also receive funding. So we can see that IOL is sending the funding, the World Bank, and then also some organisations where it goes both ways. So I can't find one now. Here we are, Care International UK. They've both received funding from WHO and sent it to them. One thing to note is that because everyone doesn't always use the same org ID for the same organisation, is that not everything will be covered by this graph. So the WHO have been publishing to IATI for a long time. They actually originally had a V1 org ID. So some earlier publishers may have used that org ID. So you can see here, some early IATI publishers have some data that has WHO's original org ID in it. That's still a very valid use of it, but it's something to be aware of, that not everyone uses the same org ID to talk about the same people.
Thank you as well. Was there did we want to quickly show another one on this one as well? Another,
yeah.
What did we look at earlier on? Yeah. Oxfam. Let's look at Oxfam Novi. Or Manny. Yeah. Let's have a look. Ah.
There we go. Yeah. So some of the bigger diagrams take a little while to load. So if it has a little moment to think about it, there's some quite big networks out there. We did look at doing a second step away in the network, but it very quickly explodes and becomes quite hard to interpret. So we've just kept it to one step away.
This kind of shows how few partner organizations we fund publish in IATI. I think this is, if, I think we have 800 or 600 organizations we fund. And only apparently like 25 publish in IATI.
But these are not.
So there are probably more out there, but this is because it requires an org ID to create the connection. If the org ID is not there, it's not in the network at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are not all publishers, I think, Leo. These are the organizations we can be a bit clearer on because they have that ID. I think from just taking a look, some of those are not publishing, but they're at least we understand who they are from the org ID that's in the data. Yeah, let's. Did you say Manny and Daniels was the other one? Manny Daniels is a good example because they're a fund manager for FCDO, so it takes a little while to load, as you say. Yeah. They've got
great big network.
And again, that's because they've viewed that they and maybe their partners, but are using these references about the in their transactions. And it's fair to say as well, isn't it? What we looked at so far, the list, the sharing, and then this network. These are all kind of in isolation at the moment, but what we really want to see is how we can join things up, isn't it? And really help people see this and understand the challenge. But we're taking it a step at a time, aren't we, to try and look at it in different ways. So shall we look at the next one? What if we can filter by country and sector? Over to you.
Yeah. So we've just looked at provider and receiver organisations. So if what can we ask of the participating organisations? And people are often interested in which organisations work in a particular country or a particular sector. So every activity, as we know, has to include a country and a sector, and it has to include participating organisations. From some activities, this is quite a short list. It might just be the funder and the implementer. For others, it's a great big long list of lots of organisations being involved. So just got this example to start with. Who's working in Afghanistan in education and emergencies? So this is filtering the whole IATI corpus, and we're pulling out the org ID of the participating organisation and the narrative. And again, that combination we're calling a reference. So how many activities have that specific reference in it for a participating organisation? And what role do they have? They can be funding, extending, implementing, accountable, or any combination of those. We've also included the narrative from the big list we made earlier to see, are they talking about the same organisation that most people in the data are? So for example, this second one down, we can see that in our big list, it's Global Affairs Canada, and then this must be a French or French-Canadian organisation reporting. So they've used the French version of the name, but we know they're talking about the same thing. And then again, this is from our big list, how many organisations use that reference at all in their data, watch the source from it. And then we have an ISD portal link for the search we've just done. So in Afghanistan, in this sector, and the org ID specifically that we're looking at, we can then go and have a look at the activities they're involved in. Again, this requires that the participating orgs have an org ID specified. So there are some combinations of searches, and you know there's IATI data out there, but nothing will come back. And that's because we need the org ID to be able to do this effectively. But yeah.
Should we just have a look at should we do another one? I think we looked at.
Yeah, we looked at.
we could have done audience participation here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it does take a minute to run because it's going asking dportal what's out there and putting all the information back. But yeah, so for example, here we have an organisation that has funding and extending roles in Burkina Faso for multi-hazard response preparedness. And then we've got someone that's involved in 53 activities in this country and sector combination. So again, we're using previously we'd had a look at, okay, who's working together? Now we're saying, no, okay, where are you working? What are you working on? All coming back to using the org IDs.
Thank you, Isabella. And this challenge we have between the org ID that we're trying to reconcile with, but still we need to remember that there might be lots of different names, narratives as we call them, in use. And we're still trying to preserve that, aren't we? Because it might be the case you're using an org ID for and you mean a completely different organization. So we just want to keep that in mind at the moment because we don't want to make a false assumption. That's why we're trying to keep this in there as well, isn't it? Yeah. Great. So we've got these three things for you to explore and have a look at alongside. So we've got the list, we've got the whole list that we've generated, and then how are those shared? There's organizations shared amongst publishers. How are the networks of organizations looking at transactions? And then this last piece about the participating orgs in any country or sector combination. And I think in a couple of weeks as well, when we meet on the 30th of September, we'll have some of this function in dportal for you to browse around and have a look at as well, because not everything has to be in this research. We just wanted to share this today. Isabel, before we open up for questions, because I think we've got another 10 minutes or 20 minutes. I'm a bit lost now with the time, but yeah, let's make sure we finish before 1:30. Lastly, there was this inconsistent org IDs, and this starts us on the how do we address the challenge? What do we do? And do you want to talk us through what this is as well, please?
Yeah, so this is pulling from the IATI dashboard. So that's something that's out there already. We've just brought it together with this research because we thought it sat well with it. So some organisations, when they're publishing their own data and talking about themselves and their IATI data, are actually using different organisation identifiers than what's on the registry. Sometimes quite a few of them. Sometimes there's an obvious source of this. There's one that iterates on by one number. So there's just been a pull down in a spreadsheet somewhere that's changed the data. Others, organisations just might be slightly confused about their org ID. Can be plenty of reasons. But yeah, it's just a part of this community effort to try and use the same organisation identifiers to talk about our partners and things. I think an important thing is to also refer to ourselves in a way that everyone else understands. So that's just highlighting that there's noise across all the data that we have to deal with to get out these useful graphics and analysis.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. And then the methodology, you've written up all the steps you've taken to get to this state, this space. And I think is the code behind the workbook that works behind all this is on GitHub for people to, if they're so minded, to get and share and reuse, I think. Yeah,
the methodology is just going through the sort of the basics of how the list was put together, and then it's not currently live, but all the background will be going on the GitHub, so everyone is very welcome to take the code, play with it, improve it, share your new ideas to get more use out of the data.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So people should have the link to go and take a look at that as well, and hopefully the areas that we've presented and shared today make more sense about the ways we're looking at this. We're open for questions, and before we do, there's no more pictures of cats. Don't worry, I've only got some bullet points. Can you see my screen? So just really things to consider. we should all, we talk about these lists and getting organizations together and giving them identifiers and those things, but not all organizations are registered on the list. There's like a thing we've always found. It could be a federated organization and it's just an office in a country. It's not a legal entity, for example. So there's always those challenges. Some organizations, particularly NGOs and others, they might be a company and a charity and various other things. They may be on multiple lists. It's just a thing we see. And FCDO used to be DFID, or partly an FCO. So organizations merge, change. Sometimes they cease to exist. So we shouldn't think of these one identifier to rule them all type things. It's the world is messy, and we're just trying to describe it in a bit more precision. But the big question, I think, is how do we all, if we're interested, how do we all maintain, grow, and share this initial list? How does it become useful to you in your work? And maybe someone might mention AI soon and say we don't need this, but I'd like to have that conversation. So I think the floor is open in this Teams room, and we'd love to get your reactions for the next few minutes before we go on our way. Anybody? Is it hands up, Cody, Rohini? I'm quite lost now with what we do.
Yeah, there's a raised hand icon if you're.
So yeah,
it's at the top next to the react smiley face.
So we're a small group as well. So if people want to shout out, it's okay in this room, I think. You can see I'm a bit shell shocked still. Anybody, any questions, queries?
If you want to go and nosy at yourselves now and ask questions, we're not doing live demo anymore, so you can all go and have a look at the app and search for yourselves like you're looking for your own house on Google Maps.
Or yourself on Google. Has anybody got any reactions or questions or a note of thanks, particularly to Isabel? I see Mary. Oh, there's 3 hands. I don't know how to work computers here. Who's the first hand? Someone help me.
I think OJ was first up.
OJ, thank you. OJ, over to you, and then I'll work out who's next. Over to you, OJ. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't want to say much because I wish to look into the data to work out myself how to use it the best. But of course, my initial thought when you disclosed that we are using the wrong identifier for WHO is that by definition in the rules, it should be possible to create a list of what is, by the rules, the correct identifier of multilateral organizations, and then map it up against the multilateral organizations actually registered in IATI registry as a quick help for us who are using the correct identifier by the rule to override that and use the identifier the organization is using themselves. But of course, I should be able to work it out myself. But those kind of tricks would be helpful if there could be some kind of validation to assist identifying, well, we are actually identifying an organization by the use of an identifier, but we know that this organization identifies itself with another identifier. So those patterns would be certainly helpful.
Yes, thanks, OJ. I think, I think that's where we want to help and move towards. And of course, always the nervousness about editing data or not sure, but definitely, let's try and work towards there. Maybe Catherine, you have your hand up next, I think. Catherine from 360 Giving, and you'll join us in 2 weeks. You've been in this world as well in 360 Giving, so maybe you also have a response for OJ too. But make your point.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, really great to see this and seeing, a system data standard looking at organisation identifiers and how to bring them to life, because that, from our experience 360 Giving, there's definitely a sense of like, if you can show the positive impact of IDs that do connect data, as well as what the impacts of not having reconciled data, it does definitely help to sell that. I mean, I think we're always conscious that there are kind of data pipelines that exist within organizations, and making those change happen. You can do it at the data end, data preparation end, but what the pipeline for capturing those identifiers are and what resources are available to do those. Like, we're always super conscious that you can't just wave a magic wand, and in the cases where there is this ambiguity about which is the correct one, and also so many different organisations that don't have them, it's a complex area. There's no one kind of prescription apart from to care about org IDs, which obviously we do very much and talk about every day. But yeah, and I think Marion, my colleague, who will be joining you next time, has her hand up as well. So but yeah, congratulations, that's really good. I look forward to playing around with it, and it's nice to see a talk chord diagram with a bit of interactivity on the map. So we might try and steal that.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you. And yeah, Marion, I think over to you.
I wrote several points on my little post-it, so I hope this isn't too long, but just I guess there's a few well, firstly, I love the visualizations, they're great. One thing, we've done those who funds with who, like recipients in common type chord diagrams before, but one thing we've been looking into recently, what we found with those was that it kind of, everyone had the most recipients in common with the largest funders, because in the UK, the National Lottery Community Fund basically funds everyone. And so everyone had the National Lottery Community Fund as their like most in common. And then like government departments and other lottery bodies were basically always at the top. And so we've started looking at other ways of identifying overlap. So we looked into one that I think was called the Jacquard Index, and one that was very descriptively called the coefficient of overlap. And so we found that they were kind of both useful in different ways, in terms of they would show you like as a percentage of your recipients what the other funder had also funded as a percentage of their recipients, and so it would account for kind of smaller funders having smaller total number of recipients. So that's just a fun data idea. If you wanted to look into those, we have I think our colleague David Kane, who created Find That Charity, wrote a paper on that. And then I guess in terms of how we can make the data set more useful in general, we've got kind of a few things that we're doing. So the first that Catherine knows a lot more about and can talk a lot more about is the kind of just the data quality campaigns, like making other people care about it, where org IDs are available, just being like, please use them, and having a kind of preferential. So in 360 Giving, we sort of ask people to use charity numbers, but also company numbers. And so we have a soft recommendation to prefer charity numbers, but because those data sets are linked, it's actually fine for people to use either. It's one of the few areas where we can link the two data sets. So yeah, the next thing is trying to link data sets. So whilst we do know which registered charities are also registered companies, we don't know that which registered charities in England and Wales are also registered charities in Scotland, which is mad. Neither of them asks about each other. So we're trying to lobby for people to link their data sets together. And then the third thing is the kind of missing registers altogether. So as you said, lots of organizations don't have an organization identifier. We worked together with Open Data Services to support the Church of England to publish their codes about all of the churches to org ID guide. But also we're trying to get other people. So like you talked about federated organizations. We have things like the Scouts or the Guides, where there's a bunch of different Scout groups and Guides groups, and presumably the membership organization has a unique identifier for each of them somewhere, and we would like them to share it with the world. So yeah, just doing more of that kind of policy work. But yeah, it takes a lot of effort to get people to share identifiers. For us in the UK, the kind of big prize is getting HMRC to share identifiers, because they have identifiers for everyone, including all of the membership organizations, like branches, and all of the unregistered, exempt and accepted charities and all this stuff. So that would be nice.
Thank you, Marion. Yeah, and certainly, and it would be good to learn more about your work in that next session that we have. But yeah, the data quality campaigns, and I know Leo has made a good suggestion about giving people that publish your IATI data quick, automated feedback, particularly on the entities that we know, the bilateral donors and multilaterals, for example. We shouldn't forget here, we've got a huge world. We have government departments and sub-departments and such in all the countries in the world. We have small organizations that may not be registered. So it's the same issue that 360 Facebook worldwide for IATI, it seems, and so we shouldn't be overawed, I think, and take it one step at a time.
Yeah, but also INGOs.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just bilateral donors, but INGOs also fund a large number of implementing organizations with a role implementing. So if we had like a tool where you could quickly check if the reference to the participating funding is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you know where and how a list of those INGOs exists, Leo, or would we have to go and source them from each jurisdiction, the Netherlands, Belgium, etc.? It's trying to find the relevant set of data to add to the data. Otherwise, we just risk promising to create the one list of all the organizations in the world, which we can't. Yeah. That's why we started with IATI data to begin with, but as you can see, there's some inconsistencies amongst it.
Yeah, but what I like about this tool is that you see all variants of being used that are slightly deviant from the right one, and that empowers you to actually detect those incorrect ones or those variants, and then you can give feedback like, hey, you're using a dash too much, or a dropping leading zero, or whatever, and then and we are pretty sure that your intention was to refer to this reference. Could you please improve your record?
Yeah, in the same way that we did last year, we added validation on the activity identifiers people use when they talk about other people's activities. We could look now towards the similar feedback about organization references, and as your suggestion, maybe start with those with funding role, because we know it's a certain type. Let's think about that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No, because the activity ID is more it's more mathematical. If one digit is different, it could be the right different one. So you don't know if it was intentionally pointing to the right different activity, or whether it was a writing error. But with the organization references, you can guesstimate at least that most likely this was a mistake and not another version of FCDO. It was FCDO wrongly referred to. So then you can target your message, and your message can be more likely to be correct. Like, hey, something's wrong. So you see my point? Because you also look at the naming, and you look at the combination of the name and the org ID.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we brought through the different names to try and make that sense check totally. Last time around in the State of Data report reviews, we looked also at AI, and then we did play around with AI and IATI data to get lists of organizations and their references out, and I was quite impressed in how that was going. I wouldn't say it was the fix, but there's something that machines could do for us here, I think, and we shouldn't think of this also just as people phoning each other up or emailing each other with their references and identifiers. There must be automated ways, I think, we've got to embrace, and I think we can. That was interesting. I'd encourage people to take a look at that as well. Ask ChatGPT to look at an IATI XML file and tell it the organizations that are in there, and then ask it to give the references, and it does do some work. But that's for another discussion. Do we have any more points or questions whilst we have a couple more minutes? Anybody?
I will say, when you're playing with the app, if you notice anything odd or anything doesn't make sense, do let me know. We can iterate on this and improve it. I'm sure there's something in there I haven't quite done right, so I'd love to hear back.
Okay. So we've had some questions, discussions. Next steps. We'll put some things on IATI Connect to discuss as always. So come and talk to us there. On the 30th September, we'll hear more from 360 Giving. I think we'll be able to launch, show, whatever the right word is, some of this function in dPortal for you to take a look at your own pace. But let's carry on the discussion when we've all had to think in less than 2 weeks. And then in October, we have another state of the data, and this time looking at timeliness. What do we mean by timeliness? Who is timely? What can we understand by timely data? So we have some research going on now that we'll share again with you all about timeliness, and we'll do the same thing again.